All right, Buccaneers, it is Fumane. Welcome to the channel. If you are new, if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. This channel is all about making sense of football, just honest conversations, reflecting on the game that we all love. And I want to start this video by addressing the people whom, upon seeing the title of the video, maybe even the thumbnail, something of an anger is arousing inside of them. To say, why do people like me, when Tito Maswanganyi is doing well, we think that we need to make a dedicated video just talking about him? Is he that important, even though this is a team sport? And I think the answer is yes, it is that important. It is important to make it a topic of conversation. And just following on, the pattern of the head coach who, after the Chippa United game, spoke about Tito Maswanganyi and heaped praise on him, speaking about the importance of Tito Maswanganyi and how key he is for Orlando Pirates following the departure of Relebohile Mofokeng. And I want to say to you, if you are that person who is seething right now that you are having to watch a video about Tito Maswanganyi, I want to say that you are the one who is the odd one out, okay? You're the one who is not in the camp of the rest of the world who think that it is important to speak about Tito Maswanganyi because he's important for Orlando Pirates. We are in the camp of the head coach as well. You are in the camp of, say, the internet, who get angry at things that have no need for us to be angry about. Just quickly, before I get into Tito Maswanganyi, speaking of Relebohile Mofokeng, it was an honor for me to be part of a conversation with Bruno from the 1897 podcast, which is a podcast dedicated to Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, Relebohile Mofokeng's current team in Belgium. Yeah, I was a part of a conversation with Bruno where we kind of went into, who is Mofokeng, what is he good at, what can Royal Union Saint-Gilloise do, or rather, what can they expect, what he can do, Mofokeng, for that club, and that sort of thing. We spoke about just our expectations as South African in terms of, obviously, we want to see him play. Bruno gave some special insight into what can be expected, the philosophy of that club, what we can expect in terms of development of Mofokeng, what the future holds, what Bruno can predict just based on what he has seen in the future with foreign players who are young coming into the club and that sort of thing. He spoke about how good firstly, a development club, RUSG is, but also a club that's good at scouting. A data-driven, I think he called it a data-driven club when it comes to scouting, that you're sure if they see something, if they buy someone, if they go so far as to buy someone like Mofokeng, it's because they're informed by data. And so, I think it was a very good conversation that would be interesting for you to listen to, and I'm going to link it in the description below. In fact, I would say before you even watch this conversation, this video that we are about to have about Tito Maswanganyi, why don't you go on the 1897 podcast. Again, I'm linking it in the description. You can go on there, watch that video. Make sure to let Bruno know that you are watching that video from this video. And just leave some love. As we do, South Africans, we love to leave some love on a Chicago Fire or RUSG page. So do that, and then you can come back and watch this video. Do it now. I actually do expect you to go now. And I'm going to assume if you're watching this next part is because you're coming back from that video. So hello again. So just talking about Tito Maswanganyi and why I think it is important for us to speak about him, for us to, get in depth with kind of what we've seen so far from Tito Maswanganyi. Now, on this channel, which is a fairly new channel, I think in all of the videos that I've made so far, I might have touched on him. And I think the reason why I might actually not be intentional. I think I have touched on Tito Maswanganyi in every single video that I've made because he's just a person who just commands that kind of attention because of the player that he is. But I think it's just telling on how important he is. It's also telling when you listen around to people just talking about football, or Orlando Pirates specifically, just how much Patrick Maswanganyi comes up in conversation, whether for good or for bad. I think all of it is pointing to the fact that he just commands that kind of attention. Ever since Maswanganyi has been at Pirates, Maswanganyi has not ceased to be on the lips of spectators, the lips of rival fans, the lips of Orlando Pirates fans, the lips of former players, and I'm not going to name them. And I think it's just telling, and such is the talent of Patrick Maswanganyi, such is the giftedness of him. And I think, I want to talk about that. There's nothing new that I'm going to bring to you except reiterate things that I feel like maybe people are afraid to say, because it's going to, again, like I started at the top of this show, say, why do you need to speak about it? And again, like for me, it's because it's that important. I think it's important for us to say up front that Patrick Maswanganyi is the key man of Orlando Pirates. Now, I think last season we saw something that is unique, which was that Pirates had about I can think of like maybe two key men. I think Osman Apolis and Relebohile Mofokeng were the sort of players of the piano, I like to refer it to. I like to refer to these key players at a club as that. So if you think about a Bill Shankly quote, which Bill Shankly made, and I think it's a brilliant one. Until I find a better one, I'm going to keep coming back to this. He talks about football as a grand piano. You need people that carry it, and then you need a few people that play it. You certainly need a lot of people that carry the grand piano because it's heavy. And then you need a few players who can play it. And I think such is football. It's the same way. I think in clubs, you definitely need people who carry the team. And at Orlando Pirates, there are plenty of those. I think of people like, again, Talent Mbata, Sihlanduli, those kind of people, Makaula, the centre-backs and left-backs, and Mbotuma seems like someone who carries the piano rather than plays it. And then you certainly need people who can play. I think of Danson, I think of Apolis, and I especially think of Maswanganyi. And I think last season where it was Rile and Maswanganyi seemed to be disappearing into sort of the abyss of the Orlando Pirates bench and seemed to be the forgotten man, people have seemed to remember. And I think Patrick Maswanganyi himself has seemed to remember. And I wonder if the head coach pulled him aside, either at the end of last season or at the beginning of this, to say, listen here, certainly the head coach is not shy to say it on the media, to speak about the vacant position that is Mofokeng's, that is now vacant for Maswanganyi to be the one who takes it. Certainly the head coach himself is not shy to say that. It is safe to assume that that conversation has been had. Now, if there's something that I do know that Wadu maybe probably does do, is that maybe he does say things in the media before he says them in the dressing room. I suspect, I can't say that with certainty, but I do think he's someone who, in his honesty, he does say things in the media to shake up his players for a positive reason, not for bad reason. But I really suspect that one of the conversations that has been had with Patrick Maswanganyi, the beginning of the season, whether it be Abdesam Wadu or whether it be Mpumi Khoza, with Patrick Maswanganyi is that, hey, Tito, sit here, listen. Orlando Pirates is an institution which operates as a collective. But for time immemorial, Orlando Pirates has always had a key man. If you think about, as an Orlando Pirates fan, throughout the years that you've supported this club, the club has never given someone a stardom kind of status where they are the face of the club, right? However, there's always been a one player in that era that you are thinking of who was the outstanding, say, star man, maybe even a player who was the star of Bafana Bafana. And I certainly, in the time that I've supported Orlando Pirates, if it's not one player, it's two. I beg your pardon. And I think, obviously, we saw Relebohile Mofokeng was dominating the end of season awards last season. So was Osman Apolis, and they were the two men And before that, you think about Patrick Maswanganyi at some point was that star man in the right, during the rise of Relebohile Mofokeng. And then you think about before that, you had people like Lodge, Vincent Pule, and you go before that and before that and before that. There's always someone who is that figure who's not above the club, but is somewhat the star of the club. He's not the face of the club, but he is the player who, when Pirates need someone to produce magic, that's the first person you think about. And I think in this time, and I think the head coach is reiterating that, to say Tito is that player. The vacant position of Relebohile Mofokeng, physically, as in to occupy the place that Mofokeng played on the pitch, is Tito. But I think the figurative vacant position of Mofokeng as the player who is going to be the magic of Orlando Pirates is also vacant for Maswanganyi to occupy. And I think that's important to talk about because there are multiple levels in which we can kind of have this conversation. Because one thing that has made me cautious to actually make this video, as I was thinking about it and ended up doing it anyway, because I thought actually there are people who would not love to see this video because for them, they don't want to give sort of Maswanganyi the keys to go, hey, you are going to be the genius of this club. They don't want that. There are people who don't want that. I want to do that. My reservation was this. I think Maswanganyi has been given those keys by Jose Rivero before, which he excelled until a point in the season, second half of the season. So around February, towards the end of the season, I thought Maswanganyi then did this. He went down in terms of his performance. I think another season followed. Same thing happened. Maswanganyi started like that. Him and Saleng were kind of on fire. And then Maswanganyi did that. Maswanganyi is older now. He's 28 years old. I think he's born in 1998. So something in me wants to think that Maswanganyi is experienced in this game. He is a veteran in the game. He has seen a lot now. Spent about 4 seasons at Pirates at this point, if you guys will correct me if I'm mistaken on that. And I think Maswanganyi would have learned something. And I think what Maswanganyi would have learned, and that's why I'm making this video, is that he will handle the stardom a little bit better. I'll get to the tactical stuff just quickly, but I just want to make these points. I think he will handle the stardom a little bit better. I expect him to. I think Abdul Samwadu is a head coach who will not let stardom get in his head to a point where he does not perform. I think Abdul Samwadu is going to be on his back. It's just going to be the fire behind him throughout the season, making sure that he does not be arrogant. People have the worry and the concern that Maswanganyi will be arrogant, like just coming off of these 3 games. I think maybe, I wonder if this is true for you as well. Something that you are sitting there concerned about is whether Maswanganyi will go into the 4th game and then we will see the worst of him. The worst of him being, and I say that very loosely because some people define the worst of Maswanganyi as, oh, he drops too much. I don't think that's the worst of Maswanganyi. The worst of Maswanganyi, according to me, Fumane, and if you want to quote me as saying this, the worst of Maswanganyi is when Maswanganyi dwells on the ball to a fault. It's not necessarily him vacating the number 10. I think tactically, sometimes that has been to the advantage of Orlando Pirates. I think he's been one who's been able to, if you think about this term, which is often said in football, he comes deep to dictate the tempo of the game. Orlando Pirates sometimes have lacked someone in a game situation, even though there were people who were playing in that position to fulfill that role. Maswanganyi has been an aid, but I think what has been lacking is the interchange of positions to kind of, when Maswanganyi comes and he aids in that department, to kind of get and rile up the fan, or rather not rile up, but to get the fans going in terms of him coming to get on the ball so that the fans and the crowd and the team can gain inspiration. People have actually not attributed Maswanganyi for that. I think that's one thing that he does brilliantly. He's obviously like a magnet of the ball. He's someone who, again, also attracts opposition. The game follows where Maswanganyi is. If Maswanganyi goes to the right, the game goes to the right. Maswanganyi comes deep, the game comes deep. And that means that there are spaces elsewhere. And because of that, you need, I think tactically, this is just an opinion, you need tactically people who will be able to then weaponize that. Weaponize the fact that if Maswanganyi goes there, we know the spaces where he left it. And we're going to get there because Maswanganyi will get the ball there. I think when Maswanganyi has not performed well is when he gets there and he doesn't pass the ball there. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think of that. But I think he's been criticized to a fault. And I think, just going back to what I was saying, the concern is, will he get into the next game and then go back to the Maswanganyi that we've come to criticize for different reasons? And therein comes my kind of, I think he's more matured and he's got Wadu who's going to push him in that regard. I think he's tasted the dissatisfaction of fans. And I think more than ever, even just the rejection of going with the World Cup squad will have lit a fire behind him. I think he will look at Thembazwane and think, you know what, I'm 28. The next World Cup's going to come when I'm 32. By the way, Thembazwane is 36, 37. You know what, I want to go to the World Cup. By the way, Thembazwane is not going to be at the next World Cup. So unless I am the best number 10 in this league, Puso Ditejane might get a look in that position. By the way, Emil Witbooi might get a look in that position. I can't think of anyone else from Chiefs who could get that position. But, I think he will have looked at that and go, Rile and I could compete for that. And I could actually make a situation where, Tito Maswanganyi goes, we'll play Rile on the left and we'll play Maswanganyi in field. Because maybe someone like Neo Rapo will take the position of Oprimudiba for Bafana. He will go inside and then Rile and I will anyway end up as the 210s, even though Rile plays on the left. I think Maswanganyi will be in that kind of thought process. And for that reason, something in me wants to back him. I think he's gonna take that on as a challenge for him. I think Maswanganyi will think he deserved to be in USA, Canada, Mexico. And for that reason, I think he will want to do more. And something just feels like, there's a lot of reason why I back him to perform for the rest of the season. I think he will want to be, I think Maswanganyi will actually look at it and go, at some point, I was the senior of Relebohile Mofokeng. I think Maswanganyi will look at it and go, I ended up in Portugal. I'm very talented. I think actually I back my ability better than Relebohile Mofokeng. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying Maswanganyi will think that's true. He will think, I am the best player in South Africa and I have not received that crown. I'm going to show people that that crown is mine. Now, what I want to say to that is, I really think that that's a good motivation. I think football players are arrogant people. The best ones are the most arrogant people because they think they're better than their opposition and hence they can do things and pull them off because you have to have that belief. However, I think with him, maybe to check that mindset would be to balance it with team contribution. What does the team need? And that's where people like Wadu are going to be like, was that touch necessary? Did you have to then touch it again there? But other than that, I think, just kind of getting into ability, tactically, that sort of thing, I really think it's hard to fault someone who's as gifted as Patrick Maswanganyi. I think just these last 3 games have been evidence of what we know is there. Something we've seen him do, when he came to Orlando Pirates from SuperSport, caught everyone by surprise. Maybe not the scouting department of Orlando Pirates and some geniuses who are out there who had already thought that Pirates have already signed a jam before he even played when he was announced. But for most of us, having seen Maswanganyi play under Gavin Hunt and then come to Orlando Pirates, completely revolutionize that Orlando Pirates front line after losing Lorch and him and Saleng just kind of coming and being at some point the go-to for Orlando Pirates to win games, as Rile was kind of also taking the ropes of Lorch as well. Just that ability. That we're talking about someone who's arguably the most gifted player in the country. You can make an argument for him. And, when you think about Maswanganyi at his best, it's hard to think someone is lying when they say he's the most gifted in the country. Just passing ability, vision, combination play, that sort of thing. Like, he's very gifted. And I think something that people have also started to take notice of is that he's very good at passing. he's actually very good at executing a pass, a forward pass, or rather a chance create. I don't know if this qualifies as like a oh, I don't know if I want to call it I don't want to call it a cross, but like a pass that creates a goal scoring chance. But I also don't want to say a through ball. He can execute that very well. He kind of puts it on the head of people. He puts it on the path of people. He's good at executing that sort of thing. And I think it's something that was never associated with Maswanganyi. When you think about, people have always, even myself, to be honest, when I think of the best passers at Pirates, I always think Shenko, which is Gabelo Dlamini, and I think maybe even, I don't know, maybe even Sipombule would be put in that category. And you'd say Maswanganyi is technical, but you wouldn't necessarily associate technical ability with passing, which passing is a technical ability. But I think you'd think more of just that, maybe dribbling, something like that. People maybe thought, Maswanganyi has got vision and dribbling, and maybe is good off the ball in terms of off the ball movement. In fact, some people think he's got bad off the ball movement. So I don't know how that works, because I think he's got great off the ball movement. When you think about the runs that Maswanganyi makes, even off the ball runs that are rather decoy runs. So decoy runs are what? Like, decoy runs are the run that I make so that I can grab in an opposition off of position, so that I can grab the attention of that person to open space for another player. You know what I'm saying? And I think he's amazing at that. I think he's amazing at just occupying spaces. Like, he's good at knowing where to be. People think he's not. I think he is. That's where I really just go. People think, oh, he's bad. He moves off of position. He leaves the half spaces. I think he's good. He leaves the half spaces. It's just like a tactical thing where Maswanganyi's ability is on the ball. And so sometimes he peels into spaces where he can receive. And I think if you've got a good combination of just being on the same wavelength of players, like, that is a strong weapon. But anyway, you guys can criticize me if you think I'm going crazy right now. I'm just being an absolute fanboy. But I think, that is some of what he brings to the team. He's going to bring that on-the-ball ability. I think if you think about just his willingness to press, he's someone who, obviously, the coaches always, all the coaches that he's played under at Orlando Pirates certainly like to use him as a trigger of the press up front. He's always the one who's leading that with the striker. So it's always a two-man initial press to trigger the press of the team for Orlando Pirates. So he's always a part of that. He's led that with Zakhele Lepasa, Mahopa. He's now leading it with Mutuma as well. And so, he's got that. And then he's got also just, I think, the hardworking willingness. I think something that maybe people don't associate with Patrick Maswanganyi is that the Maswanganyi that I know, when Maswanganyi, I've praised him, is he tracks back. He runs back when he's got to, and he'll try and win the ball back all the way in his half, like in his defensive third. He's got that. And then he's also got the ability to run the whole game. He's always running, making runs, getting the ball and that sort of thing. And so something tells me, although it might not look like it, he's a fit guy. I don't know what's going on in his personal life, but it seems like he takes okay care of himself. Maybe someone who knows him personally can tell us that, he's always drinking, eating junk food, not turning up to training, that sort of thing. I haven't heard of that. I'm speaking solely based on what I see in terms of output and availability and that sort of thing. He's someone who's not injured, or we never hear of fitness tests or whatnot at Pirates, certainly. Or let me say, scarcely do we hear about it. They tell us sometimes. But you hardly ever see Maswanganyi missing in terms of availability. And maybe that suggests that he's taking good care of himself. And then further on that is that 70th minute, he's still making those jogs to that position, just running there and, making himself available and that sort of thing. So I really do think that Maswanganyi is going to be key for Orlando Pirates. But I just also think that just from a squad analysis point of view, the people that are trying to discard Maswanganyi, who do they want to play in that position? Do they want Masilela to play there? Who do they really want to play in that position? I'm not saying Maswanganyi is absolutely God's gift to earth, although he is. He's unique and he's him and no one can replace him as an individual. And so he is a gift to earth in that regard. However, in football, you can replace players, you know. But I do think that the squad as we have it right now, there's a way in which Pirates will become a very good team if they build around Maswanganyi, a humble Maswanganyi. If they build around a humble Maswanganyi who works for the team as well, in a sense that it plays to his strengths. I think, why don't you want to have a genius in your team? What's the reason that you don't want him there? I'm actually open to be persuaded. Like, I'm really open to be persuaded. If anyone has reasons why you don't want him, please state them. Is it because he doesn't mark, he doesn't press, that sort of thing? Based on the performances that you've seen so far this season, does anyone have a reason why it's not important to like build around him? In terms of if we play to his strengths, which I think Orlando Pirates plays to his strengths so far, what I've seen this season. I think especially like these last two games, seeing Apollos play on the left, seeing Lungu play as like an auxiliary forward, what I'd call it, and then Maswanganyi playing in that right half space, and then having two sixes like sitting behind him. I do think that it plays to the strength of Patrick Maswanganyi. And I think the key for me is always you've got Apollos, because the issue is you want someone who's always in the half spaces. And if you listen to the coach, I get the idea that this is what he wants as well. He wants someone always in the half spaces. I think every coach who's worth his salt is reasonable and understands football and is going to be, you know, dominating position. Why don't you want someone in the half spaces? However, you want someone who's good at making sure that we keep possession, someone who's good at dictating the tempo of the game. And I think sometimes you also want people who can interchange in position. You want the style of the team to be fluid. And so for the people that are against people vacating positions, I don't know, I really do think that this is a principle or a philosophy that people embed into their style of play. Like, I do think that Pirates is a team that plays with fluidity. And fluidity means like things are moving, right? That's the sort of general definition of fluidity. Things are able to move. And I'm saying the structure, the formation of Orlando Pirates and the way they want the style of football of Orlando Pirates and Abdul Samadu is players can move around. And I do think that Maswanganyi is prone to moving around when he wants to influence the game. I think it always just lies on who's going to then get in there. Because he's good in there. Sometimes he sticks in there and he's good in half space, in like tight spaces. Yes, I agree. But he's also good outside of it, like just coming deep and kind of dictating play there. And I do think that that kind of fluidity and people getting in that position, and you obviously want people to go in that position to be people who are good on the ball. So I'm not saying the center backs must go and be in the tight spaces. Don't get me wrong. I do that. Hence, I kind of mentioned like people like Apollos when he's playing with someone like that, who then gets in that space and can receive a progressive pass from Maswanganyi. And I'm just like, he's actually very good at threading those kind of passes sometimes. When the central midfielders are struggling with that kind of thing, Maswanganyi is good at peeling and threading the passes himself and then joining the attack. And I honestly, I'm open to be persuaded why that's not good for Orlando Pirates. But anyway, that's, I hope I have sufficiently stated why I think it's important to speak about him. If I didn't explicitly do it, I hope it comes across somehow. You pick it up and you hear it as I speak that, oh, okay, I get why he thinks that. But yeah, that's kind of my reasoning. And again, I'm open to be persuaded. I'm not sitting here as like, I'm going to tell you what's true. I'm sitting here as, here are my thoughts. Here's my logic. I hope you follow my line of reasoning. You can point out where you think I'm flawed in my thinking, but you've also got to then give me your reasoning. you see how this works. It's like you can't just say you're crazy and then not sort of like show where I'm crazy and then show how you can reach your conclusion with sufficient reasoning, just logically. And I'm open to that. But for everyone who's just going to say I'm crazy without reasoning, I mean, you've got the freedom. The comment sections are open. You can do that. In fact, that works to my advantage, that other people see this video and will subscribe. And I hope you are subscribed yourself. And if you haven't, please just take this as a sort of sign that I'm asking you to please subscribe. But yeah, if you want to say I'm crazy for no reason, you're welcome to do that. But I'm more welcoming of people who are going to say, Fumane, I think you are crazy because here's the flaw in your reasoning. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I do think I got into a little bit of a ramble, but it's just one of those Tuesday evening thoughts. Why not? Cheers, guys.